Great, and looks like we are live. Welcome to the inaugural MIT Online Legal Hackathon, and this is, in a sense, a pre-launch. The hackathon starts, I think it's fair to say, when the plenary convenes today at not 1:30. At 1:30. Thank you, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And what we have here is some preview sessions with some of our speakers and session leaders so that people can get a sense of the topics and begin to evaluate, where you might want to participate. I should say that we're doing this broadcast live from the Media Lab at MIT, but it truly is an online event, and so to the extent that speakers are logging in from other parts of the world, I think what we'd like to think of this as is a series of events that's going to span time and also span space. There's a series of hackathons in Europe happening in July that Mark Lazar will be leading and focused on legal issues, data privacy and data control. And Eric Skase, who's with us right now and leading data control dialogues here at MIT and at the Kerberos Consortium, is helping to kick off and convene those future summer activities here at this hackathon. Similarly, there are access to justice projects and sessions here that are going to be continuing through the summer and culminating, in the case of that topic, at Suffolk University Law School at the Haccess to Justice hackathon held jointly with the American Bar Association August 7th and 8th. There was other online sessions as well. We'll be announcing soon a great session this coming Monday, June 16th at NYU, where some of us from Media Lab will be joining people at NYU and some other research institutions and companies to make an announcement on big data and privacy and holding another live session as part of this hackathon. So your Eventbrite tickets have maybe never yielded so much great programming. So without further ado, I would like to just start this dialogue with Thomas Harjono, who's been a longtime collaborator of our program in the Media Lab, the Human Dynamics group, led by Sandy Pentland, and is doing some really groundbreaking work that I'm glad that you're willing to share with folks on this hackathon, and be able to give people a chance, in a sense, to come to MIT and learn more about how you're approaching user control of data, and also learn more about the participation leadership that you've been showing with standards making. For example, with, I think your session specifically is focusing on UMA, right? Is that right, Thomas?
Yes.
Great. So, Thomas, could you just take the baton for a moment and perhaps introduce yourself and
Sure.
Your consortium and what your session will be?
Sure. Thank you, Deza. So the MIT Kerberos Internet Trust Consortium, which we kind of call KIT here, is an outgrowth of a consortium that was established in 2007 to basically formalize the development of the Kerberos authentication software. So we are basically an open source software consortium located at the MIT campus. A couple of years ago, we expanded our charter to cover broad and challenging areas. As you well know, being in MIT, we like to address difficult issues, particularly nowadays, that involves issues that pertain to society, that impact society, and so on and so on. So one of the items that we have in our projects is what we call the UMA project. The UMA project is a project that is seeking to implement the soon-to-be finalized UMA specifications. UMA stands for User Managed Access. At the heart of that protocol is the need to hand over or return back to the end user control over their data. And so in that model, the user's data or data repositories is distributed throughout the internet, which is not unlike what we have today. So users' data today reside within different locations, from their email accounts to their photos to their Twitter data, and so on and so on. And currently, the access control for each of those data repositories are not unified, in the sense that the user has to log on to each one of these accounts every time the user wants to access the account, or let other people access their account or access their data. So that this solution doesn't scale, because if the user has 10 different repositories at 10 different locations on the internet, ranging from their Facebook account to their Twitter account, the user has to remember 10 passwords, and the user has to set policy 10 times. And often, in fact, in most of the cases, these different service providers use different policy settings, and they even use different policy semantics. And so the aim of UMA is to define a protocol that allows one location for the user to set the access control policy according to the semantics that the user likes, then to link or connect these 10 different accounts to that single UMA account, where the user just has to log on once to that location and be able to hand out what we call data sharing tokens, which is an OAuth token, so that friends of the user can access the user's different repositories at any time that they want. So we believe that there is a distinction, very clear distinction, between data centralization versus control centralization. We want to centralize control over the user data, but we really want to have the data repositories a distributed heterogeneous system, so that being distributed and heterogeneous, it's more difficult for attackers, actors on the internet to gain access to these different repositories, simply because they're heterogeneous and they are implemented over distinct software and hardware. So the core of this talk is UMA, but since this is a legal hackathon, one aspect that we would like to talk about some more today is the legal aspect of UMA. And by that I mean that UMA recognizes the ability, or the need for the ability for the user to set terms of use, or to use a lay language, terms of service of use of the user's data. And so part and parcel of the UMA design and UMA architecture is the ability for the user to set terms of service, and when an external entity seeks to access the shared data, that external entity needs to agree to the terms of service. The UMA implementation will then keep track of who has agreed to which terms of service, assuming the user, the data owner, has multiple versions of the terms of service, and be able, therefore, to give control to the user, not only technical control, but also legal control of their data. And this model, we believe, is attractive across the spectrum. So, imagine today, you are, a musician, you're an artist, and you have works of art, maybe pieces of music, maybe artwork, maybe graphics work, and you would like to allow people to access those files according to your terms of service. And so this is an area that KIT is working closely with Daza and Sandy Pendlin at the Media Lab, and also with other folks in the legal industry, to move sort of towards this direction of enabling control technically and legally for the data owner, which in this case is the end user. We believe this combination of developing technical trust via technology and social trust via legal infrastructure is important to solve this current dilemma where end users really have no idea where the data sits, who has their data. The current situation really benefits only a very small handful of service provider that we shall keep nameless. Looking ahead, if we really want the internet to be a vehicle towards social equality, equal access to data, equal access to their own data is core to the design of what I call the data layer on the internet. So that's kind of the background. I have, Deza, I have some slides. I can try going through them. If anyone has any questions, maybe it's a good time, or we can just go through the slides.
Right. So I'd like to ask that we refrain from the slides just now, because there are a number of folks that would like to see the presentation, but who evidently, based on the stream we're getting on the input forms, aren't able to participate fully right now. And so the other thing is that I'd like to actually join you for the session and then fill out your slides on the UMA specification with a deeper dive into the binding obligations protocol draft as it stands, and a little bit of maybe dialogue on where we'd like to take it, and see if we can get some more feedback on that to help guide the efforts in Kantara and with the group. And actually, this isn't a great time for me either, because we need to wrap the session soon. So I wanted to ask you, Thomas, and this is also by way of sort of a sharing moment for you, Eric, and for everybody, about experimenting with an unconference format. Sort of like what happens when, well, the three of us have been to Internet Identity Workshop, for example, is a great example of a technology-oriented unconference where people can propose sessions, and those sessions can get slotted in when it is convenient for the people that are interested in having the dialogues. So we've, made that type of capability available for this online hackathon, and that's part of the reason for elongating it for 4 days of the primary event before we even kick off the longer tail that will go through the summer. And so my request would be if you would be able to join us, or if I could act as your proxy if you can't, at the plenary time when people will be just saying what their sessions are, and what we can gauge how many people are interested and sort of slot it in the schedule. And that plenary is 1:30, I think, p.m. today, 1:30 to 2.
Okay.
If you could pop in, is that possible?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Awesome, thank you, Thomas. And if it's okay, I would suggest let us both share our slides. I've got, unfortunately, a PDF document with the legal stuff, which I need to convert to slides, then convert to pure, beautiful, plain text data, maybe in Markdown shortly after that. But why don't we both put our slides on the session page, which Nader is set up for your session.
Okay, so I will email that to Nader.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much, man. Really exciting stuff.
So I will join you guys a little bit later.
Great. See you at 1:30. Thank you, Thomas.
Okay. Thanks, Deza. Okay.
Eric Skase, thanks for joining. And I sort of alluded to you a little bit a moment ago, and the work that you've been doing here at MIT on data control. It's sort of a different aspect than Thomas was describing, related to what markets and ecosystems and some other broader and I think very profound sort of takes on privacy and what it might look like to compose that in an architecture that may be more achievable. I mean, your work has been very interesting. I mean, would you be willing, if you could maybe just take a moment to say who you are and what your session themes and topics relate to? Welcome.
Sure. Good morning, Daza. I hope you can hear me okay. Someone is coming along in the background. So the topic that we're going to talk about later this afternoon is going to deal with this project also that I've been working with Thomas on and others with the MIT Kerberos Internet Trust. That primarily looks at technical and legal methods for protecting personal data, as you mentioned, but in general protecting sensitive data of all kinds, information that is of high value and requires some degree of protection and access control, but also has economic value to it. So we're going to talk about the approaches that we are taking to wrapping up data in a protective package, and then segmenting out two important concepts. One is the concept of data rights, the ability for any entity, whether it's a machine or a person, to take specific actions that they are authorized to exercise on sensitive information. And when they take those actions, that there's a check that their rights are still valid, and that the event is properly recorded in an audit trail, which can be examined for provenance. And similarly, a concept of data rights policies, which come from law or regulation or institutional practices. Once we've talked about data rights, we're going to move into an exciting new topic, which is the creation of markets for data rights. And in the conversations that we've been having over the course of the spring, it's become apparent that data rights can be packaged as a tradable commodity and, when appropriate, offered into a marketplace. And the ability to create data rights, to transfer them between different people, provides us an important mechanism to improve data security, to improve privacy and the accuracy of information, sensitive information, and finally to unlock economic value in big data. So the methods for doing that and the legal underpinnings for doing that will be part of this afternoon's topic. So I hope that helps to introduce that. Daza.
Well, I think it does, and in a way it doesn't. It does in the sense that you described the sort of thematic overview, which is great. But let's talk for a moment about the other part now, which is today, or possibly periodically over the next several days. I know for a fact some people definitely want to be talking about this topic in the session that you've called, that you'll be facilitating. And it also has some overlap with another session by Levon Reimer on markets and ecosystem formation for sort of online identity attributes, right? And I was wondering if you could maybe now take it to the one level lower and maybe introduce some of the things that you might want to talk about, and what kinds of threads or projects or activities that people might be able to engage in that conversation, in that session.
Sure, happy to.
And also let us welcome the inimitable and the indefatigable, the granddaddy of legal hackathons, Professor Jonathan Askin, who is just, I see, just popped in. Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us.
So specifically, what the thread that we want to work on during the course of the hackathon and follow-on activities over the course of the summer is in the legal area, because it is a legal hackathon. We have in front of us I'll say, a prototype contract that Scott David from the University of Washington and others have been gradually developing over the course of the last several seasons. And we want to bring this contract into a greater state of maturation and actually use it as the contract vehicle for operating these data rights markets, of which I spoke a moment ago. So the concept here is that the contract itself would be a single family of documents to which any party that wants to handle sensitive information would enter. And it's a uniform contract that would apply to all forms of sensitive information that one might encounter during the course of one's business or personal activities in any role. And so we have work that predated some of the concepts that have been developed in the last 4 to 6 months, and there are many people who have expertise in how markets function legally, whose expertise we want to tap into bringing the legal side of this package to a state of maturity. And then we will complete what you've referred to many times as the BLT sandwich, the business or economic aspects, the legal aspects, and the technical aspects for this approach to handling sensitive information and creating the kinds of ecosystems which, as you mentioned, Levon will be talking about today.
Pretty cool. I think, for whatever it's worth, this is perhaps one of the most actionable architectures, an open architectural approach that I've ever heard for getting on top of this data-driven society, the transition that's going to require an integration, interoperability, just a coherent design pattern for the business, legal, and technical structures, right, of relationships and transactions, and basically of what our roles are and are increasingly going to be as all of our activities become digital activities and networked environments. So I'm excited about the breakthroughs and the insights that you've had, Eric, with your team and with Thomas and Human Dynamics and ID3 and John Clippinger's team, and the opportunity for a broader community that's really interested in these topics from different perspectives to engage with you on this and learn, but also feedback and see how far we can get. I really think you're onto something here, and I'm excited to participate in that dialogue. So one of the things we're doing now is Nodder, who is I'm going to just show the sort of the power behind the scenes is summer intern. Hello. And this is Nodder, who is a rising senior at Tufts University, right? And is an intern here at the Media Lab, and former HuffPo writer, and good at plain English, right, among other things.
Yes, yeah.
Huh. So the extent that you have questions, that you have comments, that you have issues, be sure to go to our FAQ page. And since we've just started, I suppose none of our questions are frequently asked yet, but we have got a couple that people are wondering, like, what's happening when, and there's a couple of others. Well, there's a form on the FAQ page, and between Nodder and I, we're monitoring it real time and trying to put answers in. Those of you that are session leaders, we've sent a link and we'll send it again. You have your own particular form, and you can also text me directly if there's an issue. So worst comes to worst, please email Nodder directly, and he'll be swing into action. So we've and our team is growing over the next couple of days as well. So who we didn't hear from today is Benjamin Wright, who has opted to do his preview and overview that we just conducted with Thomas and with Eric by an asynchronous means. So he actually rolled a YouTube video, which is awesome, and he's sent it to us. So we'll embed that right in his session page. And he's also gone to town and created a 6-part video series describing his content. So that'll be what we call flipped classroom. And so you can watch some of that content and read the materials before engaging with Ben. And then we also, Levon is the other person who's doing markets and ecosystems. And the plan coming up next is that we have a plenary session, okay, 1:30 p.m. today. And the way it's going to work is when everybody gets together and when we, in a sense, commence the legal hackathon, then we'll have an opportunity to look through all of the sessions, and either Nodder and I will call out the sessions in the descriptions, or in the best case, the session leader themselves will be able to say what the session is that they're offering, and we'll ask for a general show of interest. And so you'll have an opportunity to say which sessions you're interested in going to as we go. And then in the period between that plenary and 2 p.m., we expect to have about 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how long it goes, to basically provision rooms and provision resources. And then at 2 p.m., a number of concurrent sessions will kick off. This is the open collaboration period from 2 to 4 p.m. today. And there's some folks that will be diving into sessions. You'll hear about many of them in the plenary. And you can participate by going to our event schedule link. That's just the top menu item there on legalhackathon.org. And by just clicking on the event, we'll have a link. Welcome, Ben. We'll have a link directly to the session page. We'll have a Google Hangout for that session, a HackPad, and other collaboration tools. So again, come to the plenary if you'd like to hear more and even pose questions of the session leaders to decide where you'd like to engage, and then go ahead and choose the session that you'd like to participate in live between 2 and 4, or sessions. Some people will be going sort of splitting their time between 2 sessions, and those will all be live and linked after the plenary and at our schedule site, right? And you can see all of that at legalhackathon.org. Then we're going to wrap up at the end of the day between 4 and 5 p.m. We'll have another plenary, and at that point we'll be we'll wrap up the sessions, and we'll have report outs from the leaders of the sessions that happened today of what occurred, any projects that were started, any other interesting insights or things that were shared, and we're looking ahead to tomorrow. And our keynote speaker, Ben Kalos from New York, will be posing a very exciting challenge that I will defer to. That won't steal his thunder, but you'll want to hear his keynotes. And also, we've got a great lineup. Seamus Kraft of OpenGov Foundation is going to be doing a live hearing with the DC government, the DC Council, which we can interact with. And there's quite a few cool things happening tomorrow in addition to our open collaboration session again, 2 to 4 p.m. Tomorrow, when, again, we'll do the same format, and we'll probably hone it tomorrow based on what we learned today about it. There'll be a plenary at 1:30. We'll hear what the sessions are after Ben's keynote, and you can select the sessions you like, and there'll be a number of concurrent sessions happening from 2 to 4, and then we'll do a wrap at the end of the day. Saturday and Sunday will be primarily hacking, so they'll be mostly working sessions. At that point, we think people will form groups and will form projects. You will hear some great things about challenges from Clio, where they have a $500 challenge working with their API for attorney collaboration on projects that align to the themes of this hackathon, and also from Casetext, who has another $500 challenge for participants in the hackathon that come up with a great way to use open annotations and to annotate, statutes, contracts, trust frameworks, the works. And so that's some of what will be happening next. I see we're a little bit past the session here, but because we're just joined by one of my favorite innovators in the law, Ben Wright, and he's wearing my most favorite hat, which I think is just a real stunner for video. If we could just indulge to go a few more minutes, and Ben, I wanted to welcome you and ask you if you could just say a few words about the session that you're offering, please. And we've already heard from Eric Skase and from Thomas Harjono, who are online here. Please, welcome, and please tell us a little more about who you are and what you'll be offering today, or this session.
All right, I just logged on, so can you hear me, Dan? Daza?
Yeah, I can. Both of us hear you loud and clear.
Thumbs up. All right, cool. And I've known Daza since before he was known as Daza. That's why I call him Dan. At least he was known as Dan at the time that he and I originally became friends. And
Right. And of course, we were working on online identity too. So it's like
right,
perfect.
right. It's one of these days we're going to be wondering who the real Daniel Greenwood is. But a topic that has consumed a lot of my attention the last few years is what are the appropriate ways, legally ethical ways, and evidentially effective ways to gather and store and authenticate evidence out of the cloud. And I speak broadly when I speak of the cloud. I am referring to social media. I'm referring to Hotmail. I'm referring to mobile apps that gather evidence but then store it someplace away in some system, somewhere, some other place. So I have assembled some techniques, cases, and I have developed a little prepared presentation on my leading thoughts on those questions, and I'm very, very interested in hearing what other smart people think about social evidence and cloud evidence. So that's kind of a summary of what my contribution is.
Perfect. That's great. That's exactly what I was asking for, Ben. Is a bit of a preview, so people can have a sense of the topics. You know, some of the sessions are really quite deep, and in your case, you've done what, like six video segments, right? Like basically a mini curriculum on this area for like forensics, investigation, creating and preserving the correct evidence when there's been an issue, and really setting up the systems in advance so that we can have integrity of the records from a legal perspective, and how that relates to the security and the business practices and some use cases. And so it's deep enough where I thought for you and Eric, Thomas, and a couple of others, it really did make sense to have more time for you to overview it and for people to get a sense before we pop into the plenary. May I ask, Ben, some people will be interested in your SANS Institute professional education courses that are also on digital evidence, right? How does this relate to those, to your curriculum there, and that more of I guess what would I call it? I guess more, I mean the social evidence topic that you're pursuing in this hackathon is quite new. I think what you're doing in SANS, in a sense, is a very, it's like a more of a solid. I'm failing to have the word, but less new kind of curriculum. And so, how does the topic here relate to your curriculum at SANS?
At the SANS Institute, I teach a 5-day course to professionals, and most of the professionals are IT security professionals who work doing IT work for larger institutions. However, the people who attend my class are diverse, and they can include, for example, lawyers who work for African governments, African tax authorities, because these lawyers are trying to figure out how do we gather evidence and use it in tax audits and criminal prosecutions and so on. And so I get a wide variety of people, but the core is IT security professionals. The course covers the waterfront of what I think is cyber law that an IT security professional needs to know. And therefore, we spend a fair amount on the law of data security in this course. And what's the law saying if you don't have good security, and how do you establish in law that you do have good security and you're not allowing credit card numbers to get away, that type of thing. But an important part of the key, major part of the course is also all kinds of investigations related to electronic evidence. And therefore, we look at traditional forensics. I call traditional forensics meaning getting the evidence off of the hard drive, getting the evidence off of your server. You own a server, the evidence is there, you take whatever steps to get it off. But what I have become aware of is that many of the students who attend my class are increasingly seeking evidence in their investigations out of the cloud, which includes social media, and it includes a cloud service provider who's providing commercial services to an enterprise, but it's also coming to include stuff that is on a mobile app where an employee brings a mobile device into the workplace, and arguably, for example, is making this up, the employee is stealing trade secrets or something, and the employer may have the authority while the device is in the workplace to confiscate the device and then start probing the device and the evidence that is available through the mobile apps on the device, but the evidence is actually out in the cloud somewhere. So these are issues that many larger enterprises, including school districts, and it doesn't have to be General Motors or something, or it doesn't have to be a large government agency. School districts, I get a lot of universities, they're dealing with these issues. Where's the evidence? How do I get the evidence? How do I protect privacy? How do I establish that I am respecting privacy? So I talk 5 days of legal education, very practical on these topics.
I appreciate that. And so those are some of the what I would call the wrapper of the topic that you can, I think, the context within which we can expect to kind of engage with Ben and Ben's session. And so Ben, wanted to just make sure, would you be available that during our plenary session? We've got a plenary from 1:30 to 2 Eastern time, when people will have a number of people that may have questions, and we're giving an opportunity for session leaders to let people know what their sessions are involved with, and then also to establish a time when you would actually be available to engage with people and basically go through your topic. In your case, Ben, with what I would call flipped classroom, where you've done your lectures already, which is terrific, and people have an opportunity to look at those, and then to engage in some dialogue. And so this is not your last chance. We have another one tomorrow, and then this is going to be running right through actually the weekend, and actually for beyond, we have a long tail where in your case, because it's so content full, we may very well have a lot of interest in continuing the dialogue with you after this weekend. But for starters, just for today, Nader and I are trying to do some napkin back of the napkin planning. Would you be available to participate?
Yes, today only. I have other plans starting Friday morning all through the weekend. So at 1:30, I think you said Eastern time,
yep,
I can be around and logged on for the plenary session, and I can be interacting, and I will do my best through the afternoon.
I thank you, sir. And so then we'll gauge interest and see how many folks would like to have that session today. And if it's warranted, we'll put it right on the calendar for you. It may be that that there's so much going on now, and your content is so deep. Perhaps people will say, we'd love to have these sessions, but let's go ahead and use the weeks after the hackathon to schedule them, which is totally fine. Like we're prepared because it's an online hackathon and we're supporting a series of events. That's perfectly fine with us, and we'll continue to support all of the sessions and the speakers beyond the contours of these 4 days as well. So
I absolutely agree, Daza, because it will take a while for anyone who's really interested to go through my 6 segments and digest what I said, and I am open to the idea throughout the summer to find ways to interact with people.
Thank you. And so in closing, we have a good beginning. This is some of the topics. These are some of the amazing panel of session leaders and facilitators who have come together here to try something new, to see how engaged and how connected, how productive and collaborative an online event can be. So we will be experimenting with this, and we ask for your feedback as we go at at legalhackathon.org/FAQ, where you can pose your questions and we could talk about them and adjust as we go. I'd be remiss if I didn't say we'll be joined by the Uniform Law Commission. And that's National Conference of Uniform State Laws today from 2:30 to 3:30 in a session to discuss data analytics and the propagation of uniform law through the states, and natural language processing and analytics on statutes, and the Uniform Electronic Legal Materials Act, UELMA, which will allow for the authoritative source of legal materials from state governments and other jurisdictions, such as their statutes, meeting notices, procurements, a bunch of authoritative things, to be that online HTML document that you see on their website, potentially. Not necessarily a posting in a newspaper anymore, not necessarily the published paper versions of statutes, for example. So very interesting stuff that requires authentication, accessibility, and some other criteria. We're going to go through them, and we'll start looking ahead. 9 jurisdictions, I think, have adopted that so far, 9 states, and it's going to be a quick draw, I think, for 50 state or near 50 state adoption soon, and that's going to change the nature of the law, digital law, literally the authoritative version coming right from the source and distributed parallel, original source publishers of the governments themselves, and existing is structured data at REST interfaces that you can put an app and a service on, and at that point, who knows what's going to happen with the economy and then how the practice of law will begin to look. So we'll begin to look at those topics with the Uniform Law Commission and others today at 2:30 to 3:30, and we'll have a preview of that in the plenary as well. So with that, I want to thank you all for providing this overview of your sessions, and really on behalf of Sandy Pentland and the whole Human Dynamics team here, Nader and I really look forward to serving you and serving the purpose of making this forum work for everybody. So don't be shy. Let us know how we can do that better. And in the meantime, we'll see you online. So until the plenary, we're signing off here from the Media Lab. Thanks. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Dan. Des,
we both thank you back. Bye.